What's it really like working in HR? Brought to you by Elephant, who have been training HR people around the world for the last 12 years. A lot of people say, I really like people, I would love to work in HR. The thing is about working in HR, you make people redundant. You dismiss them. You have to deal with toxic or incompetent managers who make workplaces awful and people miserable. You are misunderstood in what you actually do, so you constantly have to explain yourself. You're under-resourced, so you don't actually have enough time or enough people in your team to actually do any of the proactive, positive stuff. Really, there's a lot to unlike about working in HR, but there are some good things too. So what I want to focus on is what's it really like. This is the HR career map from the HR career guide, and I'm going to talk about 3 key roles in the traditional HR stream: HR administration type roles, HR advisor / consultants, and HR manager, HR business partners. What are those roles responsible for, but what are they really like when you're in those roles? So if you haven't worked in HR and you're thinking about it, or you're moving through your career and wanting to know what it's really like in each of these types of roles. So let's talk first about an HR administrator or HR coordinator. What are they normally responsible for? Often they'll be advising managers and employees just on the basics, how the policies and procedures work, or basic legislation requirements. Coordinating recruitment for low-level roles, so not actually interviewing but often placing ads, sourcing candidates, shortlisting, doing the administration around recruitment. Preparing employment agreements, again, not actually writing the clauses, but putting them together, finding out from managers who's starting, putting induction packs together. Completing health and safety paperwork and maybe a health and safety rep. Ensuring termination processes are completed when people resign or when they're dismissed, making sure all the forms are filled in, the processes are completed. And preparing HR reports, so might be turnover, leave reporting, some of those basic metrics in a business, the HR admin or coordinator will pull out of the system and put those together. And also maybe administering incentive schemes. So again, doing the admin, entering all the data into systems, pulling data out of the payroll system, working out what incentives for sign-off. And may assist with redundancy paperwork, so not being involved in the actual process, but may help prepare letters and the administration around that. So really the effective reporting, processing and policy advice. And often these type of roles exist in larger HR teams in larger companies, or maybe in small companies where there's nobody else doing the HR and the admin needs to be done by somebody. But what's it really like? That's what you're responsible for, but what's it really like when you get your first HR role and you're in that admin coordinator? It's very reactive, so you're actually dealing with stuff as it comes in. You don't get to plan ahead, you don't get to do anything proactively. It's a lot of firefighting and answering questions and sending out things that need doing. Very administrative, so you are doing a lot of systems, a lot of paperwork, forms, going into systems, putting in data. So there's a lot of routine, making sure you enter in the right things, producing the same reports. You can't change much either because it's so often the most junior position in the HR team, or it's seen as an admin position if you're in a smaller business without sort of that senior HR person. You can't really change much. You're really just there to process and make sure it's done effectively and quickly. And it's not really working with people. You might have got into HR because you love people, but actually often you're answering questions by email and you're filling in forms and emailing. So a lot of this type of role, you're not actually face-to-face with people in any way. How can you grow in the role to make sure if you want to progress your career to the next step, you get the skills and experience? Make sure you learn employment law for your country or your region, and also learn your company policies and procedures and employment agreement clauses so that you can answer things correctly and you start to understand the bigger scope. Hone your communication skills. So if you do move into an HR advisory role where you do get to talk to people face to face, you will need to be able to adapt. You'll need to know how to change your communication style and also be well organized. So make sure you actually learn good systems to be on top of a lot of different things. In HR, you're often firefighting. There's a lot of different things going on. You need to have good organization skills to be on top of all of those things and not miss important issues. And build some base experience. So see if you can sit in on an interview panel, or talk to, if you are in an HR team, talk to somebody in a more senior role about what happens next in the process after you've done your bit, and see if you can actually see and build some of that experience. And the Elephant Certificate in HR Fundamentals covers some of these key operational administration type areas and gives you online coaching and support about how to actually do these with the assignments. So you've moved out into an HR advisor role. You may have been in that HR admin for a few years and you've got into the HR advisor role. What's this about? You're often now recruiting and interviewing for roles. So those might be slightly more senior roles, but you're also now on interview panels, part of the doing the checks and making sure that the right person's employed. Advising managers, so now you actually get to talk to managers, often by email or phone, but you may get to meet with them face to face, and you're advising on disciplinary procedures and restructuring and how to deal with performance issues in their team and performance reviews and a little bit more proactive things as well. You may help design health and safety processes, and you may now prepare employment agreements. So if you've got particular clauses, you may actually now draft those up. Often they will be signed off by an employment lawyer or your senior HR person or ER person, but you may now prepare specific employment agreements. You might conduct exit interviews, so with employees who are leaving, finding out why they're leaving, and you might do entry interviews as well with people who have been there in their first 3 months. You may also deal with disciplinary issues and small change projects. So you might be advising managers, but you might also be preparing the paperwork for those disciplinary meetings. You might be sitting in on those meetings. Often dismissals or more complex issues are dealt with by a more senior person, but you might be dealing with those misconduct or poor performance issues, or a small restructure that only affects a few people. And you may also be doing HR admin role as well. So a lot of HR teams don't necessarily have an HR admin and an HR advisor. It may be a combined role. So you may have some of those HR admin responsibilities. But overall, you're responsible for the effective recruiting and dealing with HR issues. But what's it really like being in an HR advisor role? Well, it can be crazy busy. There's often a huge variety of different things coming across your plate, and it doesn't seem to ever end. Managers have endless questions, employees are asking about policies, you've got performance reviews and then salary reviews, then it's wellness program time, and then there's another initiative, and then there's a restructure. So it does tend to just keep on going, and you never get to stop and tick off, yes, I finished everything this week. Never happens. You don't have much credibility because you're newer in your HR career. You may not actually have that much experience. So you're advising managers on how to manage their team, yet you've never managed a team. So you need to be careful with how you actually advise managers and giving them suggestions on what you've seen works, or talk to the rest of your team and get other suggestions. But you haven't got that credibility yet because you haven't dealt with these issues yet. There's also lots of negative aspects, so you do have to deal with warnings and disciplinary processes and dismissing people and restructuring and making people's roles redundant. So dealing with managers who are just absolutely useless and should never have been promoted to managing a team and constantly have issues in their team because they're not very good at managing people. So those type of negative issues start coming in when you're in this type of role. What can you do to grow in the role if you want to actually move onwards into a senior HR advisor, a consultant, and possibly into management or business partnering? Get to know your business. So a lot of the time HR gets criticised because they don't really understand how a business works. So get out there in the business, ask if you can go and sit in on team meetings with managers, find out how your business creates revenue, what's happening in the industry, get to know how your business actually works. Go out and work with employees on the floor or on the phones and actually see what customers are, what queries come in, and what your products and services are. Develop each operational area. So I had somebody once say to me, I've done a disciplinary meeting now, I've done it, I can tick it off. No, you need to do hundreds of them to get good. So you need to actually look at all the different areas of operational HR, and you need to actually build your depth of experience. So actually dealing with disciplinary procedures many times for many different issues, and then the breadth, so actually making sure you cover each different area of operational HR. The certificate in HR operations covers a lot of those different areas of operational HR. If you want to have a look at a program that provides you with those that online coaching and assignments and modules. The other thing is use your HR administrator. So delegate tasks to them so that you can start trying to take on a little bit of the more senior work and be a little bit more proactive. So if you do have an HR administrator, do delegate to them and grow their skills so that they one day can step into your role and you can step upwards, hopefully. What is being an HR manager all about? Really, it's the effective management of an HR function. So this may be the terminology now used in smaller businesses where there's only one HR person, so that is the HR function. It's less likely now to be used in larger teams that have moved to being business partners. But you're advising the CEO and senior managers on all aspects of HR, including both the complex and difficult issues that come up. You may be recruiting and interviewing for all roles in your business, and you will be doing executive level roles, and you're also now responsible for designing the recruitment process, so making sure that actually you've got the right model in place. You may be delivering health and safety policies and processes, running the committee. You may be dealing with serious harm. You might be dealing with contentious issues around termination. So if you have got executives who are exiting the business, you might negotiate settlements, or disciplinary processes or restructures that went wrong. You're going to be responsible for negotiating settlements around that. Designing an effective HR model for your company. So have you actually got the right model in place? Dealing with senior employment agreements and personal grievances, attending mediation, running high-level change management. And then you might be designing or refining performance review systems as well. But what's it really like if you're in that sole charge HR manager role or in an HR manager role in a small business? It can be very lonely. If it's just you, you've got no other HR people to bounce ideas off, so you need to make sure you've got a network so that you've got some people to talk to. You also tend to have to be a jack of all trades, so you're supposed to know every single aspect of HR, which is interesting because accountants never have any problem saying, oh no, I'm a tax accountant, I don't know about management accounting, or I don't know about international tax, I only know about New Zealand tax or my country's tax. Whereas in HR, you're just supposed to know everything and not have to get consultants or advice on anything. People management, so you may have a team to manage, or you might not have a team that directly reports into you, but you might have, for example, the receptionist can do some HR work for you, but you're not their direct line manager. So suddenly that becomes a challenge in terms of managing a team when often you haven't had any experience or training in that before. And you also have to be strategic and operational at the same time, which is quite difficult because you've got to put an HR plan in place and be thinking long term, but you're also doing all the HR admin and all the HR advising work, talking to managers, dealing with firefighting issues, and being reactive. So it's a hard balance to make sure you get to spend some time on the strategic work. What can you do to grow in the role? Utilize your networks and utilize social media. Are there LinkedIn groups or Facebook groups that you can join where you can get information from people, you can find out what other companies are doing? Are there other people out there you can meet with and have that sounding board that you haven't got internally? Work on value added areas of HR. So if it feels like you're just doing a little bit of everything, what are the bits that could actually add real value and focus on those? And automate or delegate. So can there be processes where you can get an HR system or an app or some sort of technology tool to help? Are there people like receptionists or EAs in the business who you could actually delegate some of the operational work to? Again, Elephant has a certificate in HR management that covers off some specific modules around designing performance reviews, looking at overall HR frameworks, and making your business effective. And then what about when you move into an HR business partner role? This is more about being a business coach and advisor for either your division or portfolio. So a lot of larger companies will have an HR business partner model, and there is a separate webinar on HR business partner models, but you'll often have one division or one portfolio of clients that you'll be partnering with. What it involves is implementing HR strategy. So normally the GMHR or Chief People Officer will come up with the strategy, but you'll be the one to deliver it as the business partner. You'll be working closely with senior leaders and managers, and you're looking at solving people challenges and how to drive effectiveness. So it's a lot broader than just HR. It's actually around how do you make the business more effective. Often you deal with settlements, personal grievances, complex ER issues as a specialist advisor. You're building predictive business analytics, so you need to actually be a lot more business focused and look at measuring the impact of HR initiatives and what's really happening in the business and what's going to happen. Leading change projects, so if there are new systems or processes or the business is going through change, you may lead that for your area. And building your company culture and organisational development processes. So what's it really like then being an HR business partner? It's often really a senior HR advisor or an HR management role. A lot of businesses haven't really got their head around what HR business partnering is, and so you'll actually have a conglomerate of responsibilities from other HR roles, and it may not be really clear to your managers that you're advising what your role really is as a business partner. So often you have to keep explaining that, or you have to keep doing all these other types of responsibilities that aren't really an HR business partner. Often there's not as much operational work, so you're not dealing with disciplinary procedures, you're not dealing with minor restructuring, advising on policy, so it's hard to get to know your managers and actually build credibility. So you have to be a lot more proactive and find ways to get in front of them. And it's hard to feel like you've made progress because you're dealing more strategically. You haven't got those things. Okay, well, this week I answered this many emails and I dealt with these issues and we got this thing sorted. You haven't got that progress because you're often dealing at a more strategic level. And it's not about having the answers, but helping others get them, which can be hard if you like to provide people with answers. So this is more around coaching and actually helping others to come up with the answers themselves, which they might get frustrated by because they think they just want an answer. But being a business partner, you're actually trying to build capability with your managers and leaders and get them thinking about the people issues and how to solve them. And you need knowledge in areas you may dislike. So you will have to understand financials, you will have to understand legal issues, and those might not be areas that you actually enjoy. So you do have to make sure you've got skills in those areas. How can you grow into an HR business partner role? Upskill and flick. So this is the financial aspects of a business, your financial acumen, legal concepts, what's happening in your industry, and understanding your company. You may not enjoy some of those aspects, but you need to understand them. If you don't understand how your business creates revenue, if you don't understand how the different business units link together, then your managers won't find you credible when you're giving them advice. Develop your coaching skills and help them actually think about the people issues and how to solve them. And be proactive, anticipate the issues that are going to come up in your business area and make sure you're doing those predictive analytics and measuring what's happening and showing the return on investment on HR programs and providing data for them. Again, if you want to upskill in this area, the Elephant HR Business Partner Certificate covers off modules around some of these key components to how you can develop yourself as an HR business partner. And if you want to find out more about Elephant programs, then you can visit elephanttraining.co.nz or elephantglobal.co.uk. I'm Angela Atkins. There's also information about my books on the Elephant website, and there's information about all of the HR certificates. I've found that through my HR career, there's what you expect it to be and then what it's really like, and I hope that this has given you some insight into some of the challenges and some of the things to think about as you progress through your HR career.